so to speak.
He's the kind of guy who, he's the closest thing I've met to a founding father in today's environment.
Wow.
Actually. Yeah.
Wow.
I actually believe that as I've gotten to know him. He just doesn't believe in constraints, right? And I think that's part of what, why he and I think have gelled really well together, but what he's achieved at a scale that's far beyond even what I've achieved. It's part of that spirit of just believing that whatever's necessary is possible, right? If it's necessary, then humankind's going to figure out a way to get there. And there's two kinds of problems that one might tackle. Okay, there's problems of nature. A lot of those are the problems that Elon's tackling. How do you actually get a vehicle from here to Mars? Call it what you want. How do you actually solve some of the greatest problems with respect, it's not Elon, but nuclear fusion? That's something that actually could be important to the future of this country. Problems of nature are tough nuts to crack. And sometimes we get them and sometimes we don't. But the problems we're talking about tackling are actually man-made problems. And every man-made problem has a man-made solution. And so I think part of the role of the guys like Elon is, I don't think he should be the president. He won't be the president. He wasn't born in this country, and I don't think he wants to be the president. But it brings me back to the point. It's not president or vice president or whatever. Everybody has their own unique God-given gifts awarded to them by God. And everyone has their role to play in reviving this country. And I think Elon's role, as I see it, and he's already doing, I think he's really coming into his own, and I think his best days and best years are still ahead of him, is to provide that founding spirit and inspiration that just because somebody told you at an early age of your life that you couldn't do something has nothing to do with whether or not you're actually going to do it. And he was going to succeed at some of his challenges, and he's going to fail at some of his challenges because he's taken on problems of nature. But if he can do that, then we have no excuse not to tackle the man-made problems in our own government and our own country right here at home. And those are the problems I'm taking on.
Europe does not have free speech. Look what's happened to Elon Musk in Europe. Elon Musk should be the hero of the Democratic Party. Of the old Democratic Party, he wouldn't be the hero. Somehow he became a villain because he was actually the only platform that would allow free speech on his platform. And he's now become a villain because of it, because the Democratic Party does not believe in the people. If you don't believe in free speech, it means because you don't trust the people. You don't trust them to figure it out on their own, to have information on which they can base their ideas and their notions and their beliefs.
And their votes.
And that the government has to protect them from dangerous information, from things that might put bad ideas into their heads. And it's very patronizing, but it's also very manipulative and conniving, and really it's exactly the opposite of democracy. Elon Musk voluntarily released an insane mood that all his attorneys told him don't do that. When he bought Twitter, he found millions of documents that showed collusion between the White House and Twitter employees on censorship. And instead of kind of burning them or going through them, parsing through them carefully, and he invited Matt Taibbi and Paul Thacker, these great, the last living investigative journalists, and a bunch of other journalists, and he gave him a room and he said, here's all the documents, do whatever you want with them. And his lawyers were just screaming, you can't do that. And, I will always love Elon because he did that. It was such a bold, brazen move. And it was, I asked him why you do that. And he said, look, I grew up in South Africa. I moved here. And I moved here partially because of the First Amendment, because I love the freedom of this country. And he said, I'm a citizen of this country now. I have a lot of money. I could buy houses all over the world. I don't. Everything I own is here. And I want this country to be what it's supposed to be. So it was a very extraordinary conversation. Now let me say this. Elon is censoring stuff all over Europe. Because in Europe now, censorship is just out of control. Mm-hmm. I think they give you a $50 million fine if you write something contrary to official medical recommendations. So if you criticize mRNA vaccines, you pay millions of dollars in fines. So, all the social media companies are buckling under. Mm-hmm. China, you have to buckle under, and Twitter does whatever it's told over there. But in this country, Elon is, at this point, standing up for free speech. And I think that's great. And it's particularly great because, his whole livelihood depends on government contracts. SpaceX is virtually 100% dependent on government contracts. And even Twitter, all the social media companies are tied in with the intelligence agencies. And so what he's done, I think, is particularly courageous because of what he did, which is to release all these documents. And the Missouri Attorney General and Jeffrey Landry from Louisiana got all these other documents from Facebook and from Instagram and from Google that corroborated that this was happening across the whole landscapes, that the White House was hammering these companies and ordering them to censor. And that's how we know what was happening. Otherwise, we wouldn't know anything about it.
One of the things that Elon Musk has properly recognized, Eric, is that there's no point to having billions of dollars if you can't speak your mind freely. That's a lesson that a lot of my old friends from the business world never managed to learn. Saying one thing in private, saying a different thing in public. I'm glad that Elon's gotten to a place in his life where he can at least say openly what he actually believes. It's a lesson I learned early enough in my career that I've been grateful for too. And what I'd like to do is to have leaders like Elon help get the country and culture to a place where everyday Americans can get to the same place, to be able to express their political beliefs respectfully in public without fear of putting food on the dinner table. But sometimes it might take a guy who doesn't have to worry about putting food on the dinner table to lead the way first. That's been certainly part of my journey. It looks like it's a big part of Elon's, and I hope he leads the culture for the better.
The European Union told Elon Musk that they were going to sanction him if he aired an interview with Donald Trump. This is something that is absolutely offensive to our democracy, absolutely offensive to the central value of Western democracy, which is freedom of speech. And you had the White House and you had the Harris campaign, instead of expressing outrage about election interference by the European Union with our American election, silencing a former president, a former president who now is the nominee for one of the biggest political parties in our country, and they're silencing him. That is election interference, and you don't have the Democrats complaining about that, and that to me is really offensive.
Elon Musk faces a fork in the road. He told his employees they faced a fork in the road, and I love what he did. You either work hard or you get out. That's great. But I think he has a fork in the road as well when it comes to this content moderation question, as to whether he's going to embrace a centrist, Musk-centered model of censorship. So not a progressive model, but an Elon Musk choice centrist model of censorship, or if he's going to actually operate the platform as a free speech platform. And my view is that if he takes an affirmative stand in the latter direction, folks like CBS are going to line up and come right back, as will advertisers. But I do think that's the choice he faces right now, Bill, because there's a difference between having a centrist approach to censorship versus saying that the company's not going to take a political approach via centralized decision making at all. And I think that's far from clear that that's the approach he's going to take. Look, I do think that there is a quiet hunger that people have for free speech and open debate. And it is one of the few forums today that actually do get diverse audiences and diverse voices together on a similar platform. So I do think that is, as much as people might complain about it, Bill, a competitive advantage that this platform has going for it. I just want to see Elon really continue to stick to his North Star of operating this as a free speech platform rather than just substituting his own value judgments or political centrist value judgments. You know, some of the statements he's made recently concern me, where he says, well, look, maybe we don't want extremists on the far left or the far right on the platform. I think that is just a different model of censorship that is not quite operating this as a free speech platform. And so I think that he's made statements that both are consistent with operating as a free speech platform, but also take this more centrist approach to censorship. And I personally think he's going to be most successful both for users and even for advertisers if he articulates clear principles of saying that the platform's not going to engage in viewpoint-based discrimination.
Fair enough. I saw a clip of him about a week ago. I don't know when this was recorded, but he said free speech is defined, paraphrasing, free speech is defined by whether or not it's being spoken by someone you don't like and they're saying something you don't like, but yet you still allow that person to say what you don't like. That was his definition.
I agree with that. I mean, we have free speech and a free speech culture in this country, not to protect the speech that we agree with, but to protect the speech that we disagree with. And the answer to bad speech in the American context is not less speech. It is more speech. That is the American way. I think it should be the way forward for Twitter. I think it will be tempting for Elon Musk to make his own personal judgments to say that there are certain views that fall outside the pale of acceptable and to censor them. But I think he would be best served if he even practiced what he preached. It's the American way going forward to say that the best way we settle disagreements is through actually airing the opposing perspectives. And the good news, Bill, is this isn't the first time we in American history have encountered these questions. It's the same question as whether the Nazis were allowed to march in Skokie. That's the question today on the internet. And the American way is we will condemn what you have to say. We will condemn heinous speech, but we will do it by celebrating your right to still do it, be it burning the flag or be it the Nazis in Skokie. That's what America's all about.